Welcome back to my channel, everyone. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is fitting this tachometer to the Yamaha Jog artistic spec. I want to see how many revs per minute we're getting. Also, I want to keep an eye on the temperature, and we've got a few other little features on this bad boy. So let's get it opened and see what happens. God, that is loud. Okay, so there was two things I got from AliExpress, and that is the Norxi Mini 4 tachometer and this little side bracket. Let's get this opened up and see what's in the box. So, right, okay, so we've got an instruction manual, we've got some sticky pads, a few stickers, and this. So first thing I'm going to say is I don't like this cabling being exposed, but we'll get over that. This goes around the spark plug. This is a coil cable that you wrap around the HT lead, which will tell you the RPM, and then this is the connection lead, and then you've got these two cable splicers here which also need fitting. Now this is a 14mm bracket, and the idea is this will go where the mirror usually sits, something like this. Anyway, the first thing we need to do is get the bike undressed so we can start throwing the cables in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get this mounted. Now, I've had a little look around on the bike, and I think this is going to be the best location for me, like this, because I can get the cables through this panel without having to drill any holes, because there's already a hole there, and I don't want to mark these original panels because they're very hard to get hold of, being that the bike is obsolete. Originally I was going to have it up like that, but I'm happy to have it here. I've got a 14mm bolt, so we can bolt that up. Brilliant. Then the next step is to feed these wires through this hole here, which was already there. Also, I said about these cables being exposed, what I've done is just push the sheathing up gently so they're not going to be seen. Right, so that's the cables through. Now we can stick this on using the sticky tape. I'll be interested to see if this holds up. Right, so that's the display on. Cables are through. Now in the manual it says you've got to connect the red of this to the positive of the battery, and also the blue to the positive of the battery. Now my battery's over there. Plus, I only want the display to come on when I turn the key in the ignition. So, easiest way around this is to connect it direct to the ignition. The brown is the switch positive, and then we'll use the black as the ground, which will just go to the chassis or the frame of the bike. Right, so this is the ignition cable. Then what I'm going to do is get my multimeter, switch it onto 12 volt DC. You've got 4 cables in the back of this. Brown is what looks like to me the switch positive. So I'm going to put this on the ground of the bike, and you can see there we've got 0 volt. That's because the key is out of the ignition and turned off. Now if I put the key in the ignition, turn it, we've got 12 volts. So that will turn the display on the tachometer when we turn the key. Then when we turn it off, the display goes off, so it's not draining the battery. Right, so we're going to use this splice connector that came with the kit. You see it's got 2 sides to it. One is a sort of a blank, and then the other 2, you can get 2 cables in there. So I'm going to slide the connector on to the ignition. Right, and then I'm going to put the blue and the red through as well. Clamp that up, nice and tight. So that's on, that's connected. The next thing I've got to do is get the ground in. Now, ideally you want a nice strong ground, so I'm going to see what connectors I've got and connect it up. I didn't have any ring connectors, so what I'm going to do with the ground is literally the cable into one of these U connectors and just crimp it and connect it to this bolt here. Let's connect this like so. That's the ground in. So let's test if the display comes on. Bosh, it does. So next thing we've got to do is get the spark plug out. Right, that's the spark plug out. Now, because this connector wants to go on the spark plug, we're going to have to take this washer off of here, because if we don't, it's going to be spacing it out too much. So let's whip this off. Right, so that's the washer off. Make sure it goes on like so, and then we're going to fit the spark plug back on, and eventually we'll be able to tell the temperature of the engine. I'm not going to lie, I've had enough now. I can't get it all in at the same time. So I'm going to probably have to cut the engine shroud, and yeah. I ain't had much luck with this. I've had to take the cylinder head off because the sensor, temperature sensor, wouldn't actually screw on properly, and then I ended up cross-threading the spark plug. Luckily I've saved it, it's okay. But I'm going to have to cut a few of the fins out, or one of the fins out, so I can get this sensor on nice and tight. There you go, I've had to remove that fin there. So now this should sit on there nice and tight. Bit of a job, but it is what it is, and sometimes things aren't a one-size-fits-all solution. So I'm going to get the head back on, and then yeah, chuck the cover on, and we're good. Lovely. Right, we're back on track, peeps. Got the head back on, spark plug and the sensor. Now, this sensor, make sure that these nuts are tight because they will vibrate loose otherwise. And then we've got the cable, which I've run from the top down, along, and then basically that just plugs into the temperature sensor. What I'll do first is get all this back together, and then we can move on to that part. Right, I'm going to get the HT lead on. You can see you need to trim a little bit of the outside of the cap so the sensor can sort of come through. So I'm going to just cut a little bit of that off as well on the outside. There we go, look at that, sweet as a nut. Now next thing we're going to do is wrap that white cable around the HT lead. So just take the cap, and then we just do it. It says 3 to 10 times, I'm going to do it 10 times. So that's 1, 10. That's how it wants to look, like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some electrical insulating tape and tape it all the way around so you don't see the cable, and also it keeps it nice and tight. As you can see, it should look something like that. If I fit that back on the bike, that is on there. And I'll just take this cable, and this has got to go all the way back up to the lead on the end of the tachometer. Right, so that just runs along the frame up back to here. We'll join these two together, and yeah, job's a good one. Going to use a little bit of connector strip. Right, that's all good. And then what I'll do, because if ever you have to take this spark plug lead off, you want to leave a little bit of slack underneath your floor panel or whatever, just so you know it's not too tight. And yeah, that's it, that's all the cables in. So what I'm going to do is put the bike back together, and then we can give it a test. Alright, so that is the tachometer all installed and looking great. Look at that. So giving it a little test. Let's turn the key, get it on. That's the RPMs. If we start the bike, that's the tick over range. You see when we're revving up, it increases. And then if we press the button, temperature, that's supposedly the time, that's the voltage, and there we go. Now the thing to bear in mind is because I connected this to the switched side of the ignition, it won't hold the time, it will reset the time every time you turn the unit on and off, but I didn't want to have it on my battery connected. Of course it's not going to stay on if it's on your battery all the time, but I just wanted to have zero drain, so that's why I've done it like that. I'm not bothered about the time anyway. 12.9 volts, that's the voltage, and then hold the button in for a few seconds. That comes up the max RPM that my bike's done, so I've done 9,780 today. So I've set this for 1 ignition, 1 RPM. There's a list of settings here I'll show you in case you've got a different bike, if you've got twin cylinder or if you've got 4-stroke. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this. The main thing for me is the RPM and the temperature. For what it costs, I think it's like £15–20 in total. Got it on AliExpress. I'll leave a link in the description, and yeah, if you want to buy one yourself, why not? That's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any questions, don't forget, leave them down below in the comments. Bye for now. Better get my shopping home.